Well, for more than 3 decades, Jim Lang has been one of Canada's most recognizable voices in broadcasting. From covering Super Bowls, Stanley Cup finals, and Olympic events to hosting radio and television programs across the country, he's built a reputation as a gifted storyteller and interviewer. But beyond the microphone, Jim has also become one of Canada's most successful co-authors, helping some of the biggest names in sports share their stories through best-selling books. His latest project teams him up with legendary broadcaster Rod Black, offering readers a behind-the-scenes look at a remarkable career in Canadian sports media. And today we'll talk with Jim. Well, here we are, Jim.
Hi, Mike.
Well, this feels a little awkward only because I spend every day with you.
Pretty much, right.
And but it's a real opportunity to sit down. As I said in the intro, you are iconic in broadcasting, which is the world I come from. And you've made the crossover into many places. I mean, from radio to television, from television to author.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go back a little bit in time. You weren't even born in this country, were you?
No, actually, my father was in the Royal Canadian Air Force, and he was stationed in Europe. And in the time of the 60s, NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, had a huge military presence in Europe because there was a real fear that Russia, the USSR, and the Warsaw Pact were going to walk right through to the English Channel. So I was born in France, and then we lived in Belgium and Germany before I moved to Canada. And so that was, I mean, they had some U.S. military bases in Europe at the time with over 100,000 personnel on one base.
So you're an infant at that point now, but you how do you end up, where do you end up traveling with your dad's military career?
We ended up going to CFB Trenton, Ontario.
Yeah.
And then my father was handpicked by a group of other, my dad was an aircraft engine mechanic.
I was gonna ask, yeah.
And so Canada bought the CP-140 Aurora, which was a maritime surveillance patrol plane. Now, we moved to Burbank, California in the summer of 78.
Oh, really rough, Jimmy.
No, but the funny thing about it is, to build the aircraft, which started flying in the early 80s, they're still flying them.
Is that right?
Yeah, the CP-140 Aurora has been upgraded, but it's still flying.
Built well, ready to go for a long time.
And then we went from
So how long did Air Force Freddy, as he's affectionately known in our world, makes his way down to California? How long are you there for?
We were there a year and a half, and then halfway through grade 9, we moved to CFB Greenwood, Nova Scotia, because my dad and all the other personnel there were going to be the instructors for the personnel transitioning from the old aircraft to the new aircraft. We were there 2.5 years. Then we moved to Camp Borden, which is near Barrie, Ontario. Mm-hmm. And then my dad's final posting with Downsview.
So he's right here in Toronto.
Right. And then my parents ended up retiring to St. Catharines and ended up at a senior's home in Nova Scotia. So along the way in all my journey, I thought about writing, but I never took any formal writing because I thought, because I went to the radio stream at Humber College.
Yes, okay. That's, I think, where we pick up our connection is Humber College here in Toronto, which had a vibrant radio program at the time.
Yes, started in 72.
And some great names made their way through that program as teachers and as students, and came out the other side of some of the broadcasters that you know and love today.
What happened was, over my journey in broadcasting, in radio and television, I ended up at Rogers Sportsnet. And a few years into it, they started their website. And they realized, up until when they started, they were just taking CP and AP wire copy. They had they said, the bosses said, well, you need some original Canadian content.
Yeah.
Like everything else in Canada. And they asked me in 2003, would I be interested in writing some blogs? I go, well, I haven't written much, but I'll try. So I started really small and then started doing more and more. Then after about 10 years, I was writing longer and longer and became more of my work routine. Now, I wasn't making any extra money, but I really got into it. And Ian Mendez, who I used to work with, is now with the Ottawa Senators, had written a book. And his agent was always looking for new writers. He suggested me and Brian Wood. He's still my agent to this day, my literary agent. And then we started exploring book options. And the first thing I did basically a 25,000 word ebook We shopped it around to publishers. They didn't want it, so we published it as an ebook, and then we used that as basically like a portfolio.
Right. Here's what I can do.
Yeah,
in
this
writing.
is what I can do. Correct. And
when did that pick up for you? You're at Sportsnet at the time, and what are you doing on the air at Sportsnet while you're also doing this?
I'm anchoring and reporting. I'm traveling around. And so what happened was when you
hold on, I want to illustrate this for 1 second. A lot of broadcasters out there, they go and they do their broadcast work, and they go to black. As they cut to black, they go home. They're in their car, 30 seconds later. And this is, I want to point this out as we get to know you a little bit, because I mean, I know that I can dig a little deeper on you, and people will get an idea. You are the least lazy broadcaster I've met in my life. You will do a morning show for radio. You will then show up here, for example, and do 2 interviews in a day. Go home, continue writing on your next book, and be there at the radio station the next morning for 5 a.m., 5:30 in the morning. So this is not your typical life. And back at Sportsnet, there you are, anchoring, doing coverage, traveling, and still this new medium of blogging, essentially.
Yes, correct.
You start to embrace as a writer almost right away when they ask you to do it. This became a gradual thing, but it's kind of your personality, Jim, to, if I can do it and I have the energy to do it, I will do it. But not only will I do it, I will do it as the best I can, which I think is admirable. It's what I like about you as a friend, frankly. But I think it's what's also helped you make these transitions. You start in radio. Where did your radio career start?
Well, it started at CKBB in Barrie doing the all-night show.
Well, all right.
Yeah.
What were you guys playing then?
It was just like a top 40, and then they'd have some different music, and it was a full service community station. They had an oldie show. 1 hour we would do a top 10 countdown and stuff like that. And it was my introduction to Canadian radio. That was back in 87, 88.
Why is it we all look at our first radio job and we all kind of grimace and laugh a little bit? My first station was The Can, CKAN. I worked at The Can.
I've heard of that. Where was that?
In your hometown, buddy. Newmarket, Ontario.
That's right.
1280. But yeah, so you start out there, and how do you get out of Barrie?
What happened was, after about a year and a half, I was living. I was only making $11,000 a year, and so I couldn't afford to live my own yet. So the typical Canadian radio.
Gotcha.
And I was living at home. My dad got transferred to Camp Downsview from CP Borden to CP Downsview. And I thought my car at the time would not make the drive from Downsview to Barrie in the winter. Like I'll die driving. So I said to work, if I can get $2,000 more a year, if you can bump my salary to $13,000, I figure out a way to live my own. And they said, yeah, we can't do that. Yeah, right. So I had to put my radio career on pause, and I worked different jobs and for a couple of years. And then I got laid off at a job and given unemployment. And I went to a place I had done an internship. And I said, look, I have unemployment. I will work 7 days a week. Don't have to pay me. I don't care. And so I did that for 8 months for no money.
Where was that?
At Q107.
Wow.
And I did everything. I was the bear mascot.
Jim, that's a really admirable thing on your resume.
Yeah. So I was, they had a station, like a big, it was a big, like you see in the amusement park, a bear. Yeah. And they had 2 stations, an AM and an FM, and they would change the t-shirts depending on what station event. And I would be like, wave to the kids and, like walk Jim. Around. And the first couple times I was the bear mascot, it was outside. It wasn't so bad. But the next time was in Port Credit Mall, Mississauga. And Don Cherry's Grapevine used to have this Irish Canadian guy named Jimmy Loftus, who was the bartender, and he would tell a tall tale. And he was hosting a St. Patrick's Day event in this mall, and they had me go there. Well, the mall heat, when I took the head off afterwards, I was like, it was like 5 rounds with Mike Tyson. I was like, I could barely, I don't know how they do it in Orlando at Disney.
I can't wait for the AI thumb that we pull up for this episode of you in your mascot suit. With the smoke hanging out of your mouth. Okay, so now you're at Q107 for a period of time. How do you end up in the paid role? I'm sorry, I'm taking you right through the career here, but I think it's fascinating for people to know how you end up an author.